Hey guys, day two of the 2024 US Open wrapped up, and we had Sinner and Alcaraz. I'm going to cover those matches in great detail. There were a lot of interesting things there, but I want to shout out Evans and Kachanov, who broke the record for the longest match at the US Open, which was previously held by Edberg versus Chang. And this was one of these US Open matches in the early rounds that happens on the outside courts that goes to the distance. We have had many of those throughout the years, and the US Open has one of the best atmospheres out of all the slams. On top of that, you add the humidity, which a lot of players struggle with. Nishioka had to pull out of the match against Kecmanovic in the fifth set because of cramps. So the conditions are tough. The crowds are rowdy. And when matches like that goes to the distance, I think it's fun to watch. And Evans is one of my favorite players. The backhand slice, so old school. This guy plays a brand of tennis that is so interesting to me because he might not have the same firepower as some of the other players on tour, but he figures out how to win these matches with his craftiness, and it's so fun to watch. I'm going to start with Sinner against McDonald, and I do have a feeling that the Sinner story is dying down a little bit. Yes, there are a lot of comments on social media, but overall, I feel like people are starting to put this behind them. They're not thinking about it so much, and my feeling is that as Sinner continues to win matches, this story is going to die more and more, deservingly so, because as I explained in some of my previous video, Sinner is innocent and there was no shadiness from the ATP. In fact, the ATP had nothing to do with this case. It's handled by other institutions. Go ahead and watch my video. See what I did prior to making that video. I read the entire case. I read every page of it, and I familiarized myself with other cases as well. And you know, my first thought when I heard this without knowing anything was, oh wow, this is kind of weird. You know, this happened so long ago and we're just hearing about this now. So this is just a natural thought that people have. This is kind of shady, right? But then when you familiarize yourself with the facts, you might have your mind change. And I certainly have. By reading that case, I understood this case much better. But one unfortunate thing is that some players who are speaking in front of a wide audience, whether this be current players, former players, commentators, are speaking about the case. And it is clear for us who have read the case that they haven't, because they are putting out misinformation to a wide audience. And I get the intention. These people are against doping, and that's great. I'm against doping as well. However, the intention behind them speaking out might be coming from a good place. But by putting out misinformation, what they're actually doing is casting a shadow not only on Sinner, but on the entire tennis tour. But like I said, I hope that we can stop talking about this and concentrate on tennis. But often what happens off the court influences a player because, listen, you have to perform at your best. And if you're thinking about other stuff, which I'm sure is very difficult for Sinner having this over his head. And he came out on the court against McDonald and he played so bad. In fact, I've never seen Sinner play so poorly. And he lost the first set very easily and was down a break in a second. And honestly, I did not think that he was going to win this match. Just the way he was playing, his body language, he did not play well. Of course, McDonald was playing good tennis. He's a great player. But against normal level Sinner, to me, this is a match that Sinner wins in straight sets, especially on a faster hard court. And thankfully, Sinner found his level. He broke back in that second set. He won it 6-2. And then in the third and the fourth set, Sinner played well. So this is undoubtedly tough for Sinner. But I think as he gets through these early rounds and as this story kind of dies down, I think he's going to be okay. And I'm sticking with my pick. I think Sinner is going to win the whole thing. Night session featured Alcaraz against Lee 2. And this story is so inspirational, so motivational. I'm going to tell you about it. I'm sure you've heard some of the facts about 2 already during the broadcast, but I dug a little deeper. And before I tell you about 2, let's talk about the match. So 2 came through the qualies. He's ranked 186 in the world. And on paper, you would think no chance against Alcaraz. And it certainly looked like that in the first set. Alcaraz blew him off the court, and you can tell that 2 was a little bit nervous. However, in the second set, 2 got comfortable and started playing a lot better. And this turned into a very entertaining match because 2 has a little bit more of a classic technique on his backhand, and it was fun to see him hit those backhand down the line winners. And of course, Alcaraz did make some unforced errors and some double faults late in that second set, and two ended up taking a set of Alcaraz. Alcaraz settled himself, played well in sets 3 and 4, and won the match quite comfortably. Where two came from, taking a set of Alcaraz during the night session on Arthur Stadium is such a great story. So two started playing professional level tournaments in 2011, and he was doing okay. He was playing futures, and the highest ranking that he was able to achieve was in 2014, which was 1,212 in the world. And two then decided to start teaching tennis and did not play at all for 6 years. And during COVID, a lot of people's lives were changed because we had a lot of time on our hands, and two decided to start playing again. And guess what? He started playing UTR tournaments, prize money tournaments, and started doing really well and went back on the future circuit, and his ranking started steadily rising. In 2021, he finished 521 in the world. In 22, he was 210 in the world. In 23, he was 225 in the world. And currently, 2024, he's 189 in the world. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be motivated by the story, and you're going to think, hey, I'm going to try to turn pro in my mid-20s, and maybe I can play Alcaraz on center court at the US Open. And by all means, go ahead and try. However, two was a very good player in juniors. In fact, he was number 2 in Australia in juniors behind Kokinakis. So this is a very talented player. So to me, the motivational aspect of this story is not necessarily that two was able to make it later, which is motivational, and that's great, no doubt about it, but it's something else. See, in order to be number 2 in Australia in juniors, you're going to have to invest your whole life into reaching that level of play. So two put a tremendous amount of work into his tennis during his childhood. So to me, the most motivational aspect of the story is the fact that he took 6 years off and continued right where he left off. And that is the great thing about the game of tennis, because when you put in the hard work, it's not going to disappear. A lot of players are scared that when they stop training that they're going to get a lot worse. You're not. All the work that you're putting into your game will stay with you because you are building muscle memory. Your strokes are being automated when you play a lot of matches. All these processes get automated, and even when you take 6 years off, when you step back on the court, all that is still going to be there. That to me is the most motivational element of the story, and this should motivate anyone to go out there and train, because it's really worth it. Your tennis will thank you when you put in the hard work. Now, don't think taking 6 years off is great. It's not great, and it's not going to guarantee you that you're going to play better, because what's going to happen for sure when you take a lot of time off from tennis is that you're going to lose your fitness. You're not necessarily going to lose your strokes, but you are guaranteed to lose your fitness. But while I was listening to this story during yesterday's match, in my mind, I kept thinking, this is exactly like the Karue Sell story. And for you guys that don't know who he is, he's a fellow YouTuber. And I'm not going to tell you about his recent results because I don't want to spoil it for him. You can check out his YouTube channel and catch up with what he's doing. But long story short, Karue was a high-level player and was in the top 400 in the world after he finished playing college tennis for UCLA. And I'm very similar to Tu, who took maybe 5 or 6 years off and recently went back on tour, and he's doing phenomenal. Not only did he pick up right where he left off, but my gut feeling is the trajectory that he's having with the quickness that he was able to climb the rankings. I was thinking, we saw two on center court of the US Open coming through the qualies. I think we're going to see Sell one day do the exact same thing. And since Sell is one of us, a YouTuber, this is going to be phenomenal when it happens. But even if it doesn't happen, even up to this point, what Sell was able to do with his tennis, he's already in his 30s, is truly spectacular and deserves a lot of respect.